You've been helping people heal your entire life. You just never had the language for what you were actually doing. You didn't study it. You didn't train for it. You didn't frame a certificate and hang it on the wall waiting for permission to begin. It simply happened. It happened in midnight kitchens when someone called you because they had no one else they could call. It happened in conversations where you spoke one sentence, just one, and watched something shift behind another person's eyes. Something that had been locked away for months, sometimes years, dissolved in a single breath because somehow, you found the exact frequency of words that matched the exact frequency of their wound. And you probably brushed it off. You probably said something like, "I just listen well." Or, "I don't know, people just tell me things." Or the one that cuts deepest, "It wasn't me. I didn't really do anything." But you did do something. You have been doing something your entire life. And this transmission exists because the Arcturian Council will no longer allow you to keep hiding from what you are. This is not content. This is not just another video about healing gifts, music, or spiritual awakening or discovering your purpose. This is an activation, and it was calibrated specifically for your field before you ever arrived here. Your higher self sent the signal. The Arcturian field matched it. And together, they pulled you into this exact moment because the gift you have been unconsciously leaking into the world for decades is now ready, to come fully online. Not partially. Not in the diluted, apologetic, accidental way it has been functioning. Fully. Consciously. With the full authority of what you actually are. Drop your shoulders. Let your jaw soften. Take one real breath. Not a shallow breath trapped in your chest. A breath that reaches the bottom of your lungs and gently presses against your ribs. Because what moves through this transmission over the next 25 minutes is going to reorganize something fundamental inside your energetic architecture. Your body already knows. Let it prepare. The Arcturian Council does not activate dormant codes casually. They observe. They measure. They wait with a patience that spans entire incarnation cycles. And they move only when the soul reaches the precise vibrational threshold where activation will hold, where it will not destabilize, where the vessel is strong enough to carry the full frequency without fragmenting beneath the weight of its own light. You are standing at that threshold right now. Not approaching it, not working toward it, at it. The reason this transmission was prepared today, in this exact window, is because your field has reached what the Council calls critical coherence. The point where enough ancestral static has cleared, enough old programming has loosened, enough compression has lifted, enough distortion has fallen away that the original signal can finally come through cleanly. And that original signal, the one encoded into your 12-strand energetic DNA template before you ever took your first breath on this planet, is a healing frequency. Not metaphorically, literally. A measurable electromagnetic healing frequency your body has been broadcasting since the day you arrived. The Arcturian Council identified you before this incarnation as a frequency transmitter. A soul whose biofield carries a specific resonance pattern capable of influencing the electromagnetic coherence of other living systems. In simpler terms, your presence heals people. Your voice heals people. Your attention, when fully directed, recalibrates the nervous systems of the people around you. And you have been doing this your entire life without ever being told what it was. Let me describe your life back to you and tell me if it sounds familiar. People come to you with their heaviest things. Not always the people you expect. Sometimes strangers. Sometimes someone you barely know at a party suddenly tells you something they have never said out loud. You didn't ask. You didn't pry. Something in your field gave them permission to unburden. And they took it instinctively because their nervous system recognized something in yours that their conscious mind could not name. You are the person people call when they are falling, apart. Not always the first call. Sometimes you are the last one. The call they make at 2 in the morning when everything else has failed. When the advice didn't work. When the coping strategies collapsed. When the only thing left is the raw, unprocessed truth of what they are feeling. And somehow, in ways you have never been able to fully explain, you say the thing. The exact thing. Not a rehearsed therapeutic method. Not something you read in a book. A transmission that moves through you in the moment with a precision that surprises even you. And afterward, the person feels different. Lighter. Clearer. Sometimes profoundly changed by a single conversation. And every time, you minimize it. You deflect the gratitude. You say, I didn't do anything. You did the work. And part of that is genuine humility. But another part, the part the Arcturian Council needs you to hear today, is suppression. Somewhere in your lineage, somewhere inside the accumulated code of your ancestral DNA, there is a program that says this gift is dangerous. Don't name it, don't claim it, don't let them see what you can do. Because the last time someone like you was visible, it did not end well. That is not your imagination. That is cellular memory. That is inherited caution. Ancestors and past life versions of your own soul carried healing frequencies in eras when that kind of power was met with persecution, exile, or worse. The suppression code was survival logic. Once, it kept the gift alive by keeping it hidden. But it has been running far beyond its expiration date. And it has cost you something enormous. It has cost you the full conscious use of the most powerful thing about you. There is something else the Arcturian Council wants you to understand, and it may be the piece that changes everything. Your healing gift was never meant to be used only in crisis. It was never designed to exist only in emergency moments, only in midnight phone calls, only in the quiet corners where people bring you their broken pieces and ask you to help them hold them. That was only the beginning. That was the training ground. Because the deeper truth is this. Your frequency was designed to build realities, not just repair them. Most people think healing is about fixing damage. But Arcturian healing does not work that way. It is not repair. It is remembrance. It is the restoration of original coherence. It is the return of a system back to the blueprint it carried before fear distorted it. And that means your gift is not limited to helping wounded people feel better. Your gift affects spaces, timelines, decisions, opportunities. Entire environments reorganize around the field you hold when you are fully aligned. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt everyone shift? Not because you demanded attention. Not because you performed. Because your field changed the architecture of the space. People sat differently, spoke differently, breathed differently. Truth came closer to the surface. Tension either dissolved or revealed itself instantly. That is not social intuition. That is field influence. That is coherence entering a system that had adapted to distortion. And distortion always reacts when coherence arrives. This is why some people are magnetized to you and others seem strangely uncomfortable in your presence. You thought maybe they misunderstood you. Maybe you were too intense. Maybe your energy was too much. No. Your frequency makes unconscious things visible. People who are ready for truth feel relief around you. People committed to illusion feel exposed. Neither response is personal. It is energetic. Stop interpreting it as rejection. It is resonance. The Arcturian Council says one of the greatest mistakes frequency transmitters make is believing they are here only to comfort. You are not here only to soothe. You are here to reveal. Sometimes healing feels like peace. Sometimes healing feels like disruption. Sometimes your presence will calm a storm. Sometimes your presence will become the storm because what was false can no longer remain stable around you. That is not failure. That is function. There are relationships in your life that were built around the version of you that stayed small. The version that translated itself into something digestible. The version that apologized for its knowing. The version that dimmed its perception so others could stay comfortable. As your field strengthens, those structures will shake. Some people will rise with you. Some will resist. Some will leave. Let them. Not from bitterness. From alignment. You cannot carry your true frequency and maintain contracts built on your self-abandonment. That chapter is ending. The Council is very clear about this. Do not confuse peacekeeping with purpose. Do not confuse self-erasure with love. Do not confuse emotional exhaustion with spiritual service. Your gift was never meant to make you disappear. It was meant to make you unmistakable. There is a timeline already forming around you right now. A version of your life where your healing is not hidden. Where your work, your voice, your presence, your choices are aligned with what you actually are. Where you stop leaking power and start directing it. Where reciprocity replaces depletion. Where your nervous system no longer confuses chaos for intimacy. Where your intuition is trusted the first time. Where your gifts create structure, not just survival. That timeline is not fantasy. It is proximity. And every time you choose truth over performance, clarity over people-pleasing, embodiment over apology, you step closer to it. This is why so much has felt unstable lately. You are not losing your life. You are losing your tolerance for misalignment. There is a difference. The old reality cannot travel where you are going. It was built for a version of you that no longer exists. And yes, there will be grief in that. There should be. Even necessary endings carry grief. But grief is not always a sign you made the wrong choice. Sometimes grief is simply proof that you fully witnessed what something meant before you released it. Honor it, but do not return to it. The Arcturian Council wants you facing forward now. Because the next phase of your activation is not about discovering your gift. It is about building a life that can hold it. That requires boundaries. That requires discernment. That requires saying no without guilt. That requires understanding that access to your energy is sacred, not automatic. You are not required to bleed to prove you are loving. You are not required to drain yourself to prove you are healing. You are not required to stay available to people who only know how to meet you through your exhaustion. The new frequency demands new architecture. And architecture is built through decisions. Small ones. Daily ones. The moment you stop over-explaining. The moment you trust the red flag. The moment you leave the conversation your body already told you is wrong. The moment you let silence be an answer. The moment you stop negotiating with what your soul has already made clear. These are not ordinary choices. These are dimensional choices. These are the places timelines split. This is where destiny stops being abstract and becomes behavior. So here is the final question. What would your life look like if you stopped treating your gift like an accident? If you stopped calling your power coincidence? If you stopped waiting for someone outside you to confirm what your soul has known since the beginning? Because the council is not asking you to become someone new. They are asking you to stop abandoning who you already are. That is the real activation. Not becoming, remembering, not receiving, allowing, not searching, claiming. And the moment you do that fully, reality responds. Because reality has been waiting for your permission too. There is one final layer almost no one talks about, because once you understand it, you can never return to pretending your life is random. The people you have loved were never accidents. The people who hurt you were not random either. The doors that opened too easily. The ones that slammed shut without explanation. The friendships that felt ancient on the first conversation. The relationships that entered like lightning and left like a storm. None of it was meaningless. The Arcturian Council calls this relational architecture. Before incarnation, certain energetic agreements are formed. Not rigid fate, not punishment. Design. A living map of encounters meant to trigger specific awakenings inside your field. Some souls come to support your expansion. Some arrive to challenge your boundaries. Some come only to mirror the places where you still abandon yourself. And some, this is important, come only long enough to remind you of what your soul already knows. You kept asking, why did they leave? But the better question was, what did they activate before they left? Because not every soul contract is meant for permanence. Some are ignition points. Some people are bridges, not destinations. Some relationships are not failures because they ended. They succeeded because they completed the lesson they were designed to bring. Your pain came from trying to turn temporary assignments into permanent homes. from trying to keep people whose purpose was only to wake something up in you. The Arcturian Council says healers do this often. Because your heart sees potential before it sees reality. You can feel who someone could become. But your mission is not to love people for their potential while abandoning yourself in their present behavior. That is not compassion. That is distortion. You were not sent here to rescue everyone. You were sent here to remain coherent enough that those ready for healing can recognize themselves in your field. There is a difference. Rescuing creates dependency. Coherence creates remembrance. And many of your deepest wounds were born from confusing the two. You thought love meant staying. Even when your body was exhausted. Even when your intuition was screaming. Even when every sign in your field said this connection had become misaligned. You stayed because leaving felt like failure. But sometimes leaving is the highest form of spiritual integrity. Sometimes the lesson is not endurance. Sometimes the lesson is departure. Sometimes the soul evolves not by holding on, but by finally walking away. There are names coming into your mind right now as you hear this. People you still energetically carry. People whose absence still echoes. People you thought you were supposed to save. People you thought were supposed to save you. Take a breath. The Council wants you to understand this clearly. Closure is not always a conversation. Sometimes closure is energetic consent to stop carrying what was never yours. Sometimes closure is deciding that your peace matters more than your need for explanation. Sometimes closure is the moment you stop reopening a door your soul already closed. That is power. That is healing. That is liberation. And once you reclaim that energy, something extraordinary happens. The life force that was trapped in old contracts returns to you. Suddenly your creativity comes back. Your clarity sharpens. Your body feels lighter. Your intuition becomes louder. Because energy was never lost. It was just bound to unfinished attachment. This is why after certain endings, your whole life begins to accelerate. Not because you became lucky. Because your field became available again. The Arcturian Council says many of you are standing at that threshold now. An old contract is ending. A version of you tied to old emotional architecture is dissolving. And part of you still wants to go back because familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar freedom. Do not go back. Read that again inside yourself. Do not go back. Not to the person. Not to the pattern. Not to the self that believed survival required self-betrayal. That version of you completed its work. Honor it. Thank it. But do not rebuild your home there. There is someone you become after you stop negotiating with your own knowing. Someone calmer, cleaner, more precise, less available for confusion, more available for truth. That person is not cold. That person is finally aligned. That person is you without distortion. And yes, some people will call that selfish. Let them. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries often interpret your healing as betrayal. That does not make them right. It makes them adjusted to your self-abandonment. Your responsibility is not to remain familiar. Your responsibility is to remain true. This is the moment where spiritual language becomes real life. Not crystals, not rituals, not perfect words. Choice, behavior, discernment. Who gets access? What gets your energy? What no longer does? That is where ascension lives. Not above your life. Inside your decisions. The Council wants this anchored in you. You are allowed to outgrow people. You are allowed to disappoint expectations that were built on your silence. You are allowed to become unrecognizable to those who only knew your wounded self. That is not losing love. That is losing distortion. And what remains after distortion leaves is real. Real love, real purpose, real peace, real reciprocity, real life. That is what is waiting on the other side of release. Not emptiness. Space. And space is where destiny enters. So if something in you has been trying to leave, a relationship, a role, a version of yourself, listen. Not every ending is destruction. Some endings are instructions. Some endings are the soul saying, you have learned enough here. Move. And when your soul says move, hesitation becomes suffering. Trust the movement. Trust the ending. Trust the intelligence of what is leaving. Because sometimes the greatest proof of healing is not what you hold on to. It is what you finally stop carrying.